Haruki Murakami, The Elephant Vanishes. The Fall of the Roman Empire. I first noticed the wind had begun to blow in the afternoon on the Sunday, or more precisely at 7 past 2 in the afternoon. At the time, just like I always do on Sunday afternoons, that is, was sitting at the kitchen table listening to some innocuous music while catching up on a week's worth of entries in my diary. I make a practice of jotting down each day's events throughout the week, then writing them up on Sunday. I just finished with the 3 days up through Tuesday when I became aware of the strong winds droning past my window. I canned the diary entries, capped my pen, and went out of the veranda to take in the laundry. The things on the line were all aflutter, whipping out loud, dry cracks, streaming their crazed comet tails off into space. When I least suspected it, the wind seemed to have picked up out of nowhere, hanging out the laundry on the veranda in the morning, at 8 past 10 in the morning, to be exact. There hadn't been the slightest whisper of a breeze. About that, my memory is as airtight as the lid on a blast furnace, because for a second there I'd even thought, no need for clothespin on such a calm day. There honest to goodness hadn't been a puff of air moving anywhere. Swiftly gathering up the laundry, I then went around shutting all the windows in the apartment. Once the windows were closed, I could hardly hear the wind at all. Outside, in the absence of sound trees, Himalayan cedars and chestnuts mostly, squirmed like dogs with an uncontrollable itch. Swatches of cloud cover slipped across the sky and out of sight like shifty-eyed secret agents, while on the veranda of an apartment across the way, several shirts had wrapped themselves around a plastic clothesline and were clinging frantically like abandoned orphans. It's really blowing up a gale, I thought. Upon opening the newspaper and checking out the weather map, however, I didn't find any sign of a typhoon. The probability of a rain was listed at 0%. A peaceful Sunday afternoon like the heyday of the Roman Empire, it was supposed to have been. I let out a slight, maybe 30% sigh and folded up the newspaper, tidied the laundry away in the chest of drawers, made coffee while listening to more of the same innocuous music, then carried on with my diary keeping over a hot cup. Thursday, I slept with my girlfriend. She likes to wear a blindfold during sex. Ooh la la. She always carries around a piece of cloth in her airline overnight bag just for that purpose. Not my thing really, but she looks so cute blindfolded like that, I can't very well object. We're all human after all, and everybody's got something a little off somewhere. That's pretty much what I wrote for the Thursday entry in my diary. 80% facts, 20% short comments, that's my diary policy. Friday, I ran into an old friend in Ginza store. He was wearing a tie with the most ungodly pattern telephone numbers, a whole slew of them on a stripped background. I'd gotten that far when the telephone rang. Part 2. The 1881 Indian Uprising. It was 36 past 2 by the clock when the telephone rang. Probably her, my girlfriend with the thing about blindfolds, that is, or so I thought. She'd planned on coming over on Sunday anyway, and she always makes a point of ringing up beforehand. It was her job to buy groceries for dinner. We decided on oyster hot pot for that evening. Anyway, it was 2:36 in the afternoon when the telephone rang. I have the alarm clock sitting right next to the telephone. That way I always see the clock when I go for the telephone, so I recall that much perfectly. Yet, when I picked up the receiver, all I could hear was this fierce wind blowing, a rumble full of fury, like the Indians all rising on the warpath in 1881, right there in the receiver. They were burning pioneer cabins, cutting telegraph lines, wrapping Candice. Hello? I ventured, but my lone voice got sucked under the overwhelming tumult of history. Hello? Hello? I shouted out loud, again to no avail. Straining my ear, I could just barely make out the faintest catches of what might have been a woman's voice through the wind. Or then again, maybe I was hearing things. Whatever the wind was too strong to be sure, and I guess too many buffaloes had already bitten the dust. I couldn't say a word. I just stood there with the receiver to my ear. Hard and fast, I had the thing practically glued to my ear. I almost thought it wasn't going to come off. But then, after 15 or 20 seconds like that, the telephone cut off. It was as if a lifeline had snapped into a seizure, after which a vast and empty silence, warmthless as overbleached underwear, was all that remained. Part 3. Hitler's invasion of Poland. That does it. I let out another sigh, and I continued with my diary, thinking I'd better just finish logging it in. Saturday. Hitler's armored divisions invaded Poland. Dive bombers over Warsaw. No, that's not right. That's not what happened. Hitler's invasion of Poland was on September 1, 1939, not yesterday. After dinner yesterday, I went to the movie and saw Meryl Streep in Sophie's Choice. Hitler's invasion of Poland was only figured in the film. In the film, Meryl Streep divorces Dustin Hoffman, but then in a commuter train she meets this civil engineer played by Robert De Niro and remarries. A pretty alright movie. Sitting next to me was a high school couple, and they kept touching each other on the tummy the whole time. Not bad at all, your high school student's tummy. Even me, time was I used to have a high school student's tummy. Part 4. And the realm of raging winds. Once I had squared away the previous week's worth in my diary, I sat myself down in front of the record rack and picked up some music for a windy Sunday afternoon's listening. I settled on... Oh, this is going to be a tough one. Shostakovich Cello Concerto and a Sly. Oh, it's an entire thing. Shostakovich Cello Concerto and a Sly and the Family Stone album. Selections that seemed suitable enough for high winds, and I listened to these two records one after the other. Every so often, things would strafe past the window, white sheet flying east to west like some sorcerer brewing an elixir of roots and herbs, a long flimsy tin sign arching its sickly spine like an anal sex enthusiast. I was taking in the scene outside to the strains of the Shostakovich cello concerto when again the telephone rang. The alarm clock beside the telephone read 3:48. I picked up the receiver fully expecting that Boeing 747 jet engine roar, but this time there was no wind to be heard. "Hello," she said. "Hello," I said too. "I was just thinking about heading over with the fixings for the hot pot, okay?" said my girlfriend. "She'll be on her way with the groceries and a blindfold." "Fine by me, but..." "You have a casserole, right?" "Yes, but," I say. "What gives? I don't hear that wind anymore." "Yeah, the wind stopped. Here in Nakano, it let up at 3:25. So I don't imagine it'll be long before it lets up over there." "Maybe so," I said as I hung up the telephone. Then took down the casserole from the above closet storage compartment and washed it in the sink. Just as she had predicted, the wind stopped at 4:05 on the dot. I opened the windows and looked around outside. Directly below, a black dog was intently sniffing around at the ground. For 50 or 20 minutes, the dog kept at it tirelessly. I couldn't imagine why the dog felt so compelled. Other than that, though, the appearances and workings of the world remained unchanged from before the winds had started. The Himalayan cedars and chestnuts stood their open ground, aloof as if nothing had transpired. Laundry hung limply from the plastic clothesline. Atop the telephone poles, crows gave a flap or two of their wings, their beaks shiny as credit cards. Meanwhile, during all of this, my girlfriend had shown up and began to prepare the hot pot. She stood there in the kitchen, cleaning the oysters, briskly chopping Chinese cabbage, arranging blocks of tofu just so, simmering broth. I asked her whether she hadn't tried telephoning at 2:36. "I called all right," she answered while rinsing rice in a colander. "I couldn't hear a thing," I said. "Yeah, right, the wind was tremendous," she said matter-of-factly. Matter-of-factly. I got a beer out of the refrigerator and sat down on the edge of the table to drink it. "But really, why all of a sudden this fury of wind? Then again, just like that, nothing?" I asked her. "You got me," she said, her back turned towards me as she shelled shrimps with her fingernails. "There's lots we don't know about the wind. Same as there's lots we don't know about ancient history or cancer or the ocean floor or outer space or sex." I said. That was no answer. Still, It didn't look like there was much chance of furthering this line of conversation with her, so I just gave up and watched the oyster hot pot progress. Say, can I touch your tummy? I asked her. Later, she said. So, until the hot pot was ready, I decided to pull together a few brief notes on the day's events so I could write them up in my diary next week. This is what I jotted down: Fall of Roman Empire, 1881 Indian Uprising, Hitler's invasion of Poland. Just this, and even next week I'd be able to reconstruct what went on today. Precisely because of this meticulous system of mine, I have managed to keep a diary for 22 years without missing a day. To every meaningful act, its own system, whether the wind blows or not. That's the way I live.